Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier. So, Rina is a character in Zenless Zone Zero, believe it or not, it is true. Now, Rina is a character that is considered by a lot of players to be pretty fucking ass. A lot would consider her the worst support in the game, which is false, but I will get into that in just a moment. This video will be mainly going over what Rina is as a character, what she does, how she works, how good she actually is, and I will briefly mention things related to the buffs that are going to be coming soon. The focus of this video is not going to be buffs, however. It will be mentioned briefly, but they are in version 1 right now. They will be changed a lot, and they're not really why I'm making this. I just feel like it would be a good idea to kind of explain, to go over what this character actually does, what her purpose is, and what to expect or not to expect from this unit. That's a decent intro, right? Rina is what I would consider one of the niche supports in Zenless. Now, supports in Zenless are kind of fucked. And I don't mean support as in the literal support role. I mean support as in any character that can kind of support a character at all. So that includes Zhao's defense, that includes like Seth, that includes fucking anyone that supports at all, and that is their main role. Now, Rina would fall into the category that I would consider niche supports. Now, niche supports in this game are pretty fucking ass. Or if they're not ass, they are for some reason very undertuned. An example of a niche support in this game would be Lighter. Another one would be Orphe. And then obviously Rina. There are others probably that I'm forgetting. I guess Pan. Like technically the Rupture supports are niche supports, but that's mainly because Rupture sucks and has like 3 characters. And then if we were to compare this to more generalist supports, we can bring up characters like Astra. Even I would bring up Yusa as well, Dylan, potentially Nangong. Nangong's a bit more niche, but still a lot more generalist than every character before. For whatever reason, Zenless likes to make really good generalist supports that are better at buffing than the niche ones. Lighter, in terms of pure buffing value, actually buffs less than Astra, despite being locked to 2 elements, and also specifically 1 class with 2 elements for some reason. Kind of the same thing goes for Orphe, where Orphe is specifically made as like an Aftershock sub DPS, so she has 1 team and isn't even really all that crazy in that 1 team. She's very easily replaced for another unit, and this is straight up worse at higher investments, which is kind of unfortunate. Rina is very similar. Rina is a niche unit. You can kind of cope that she is a generalist support because she gives pen, but she really isn't. That's probably why I think a lot of people think she's much worse than she is, because they try to use Rina as a generalist, and as a generalist, she is pretty fucking bad. But what Rina's purpose is buffing shock units. Problem with this is, even ignoring Rina's kit entirely, there are 2 shock characters in the game, technically. Like, pure electric anomalies, there are 2 of them. If we want to include other shock units that aren't anomaly, there are 3, because there is Harumasa. There isn't really much demand for shock support, but on top of that, her buffing is pretty low, for whatever reason. Rina does give a pen buff to basically anyone, which is fine. The pen buff is about 29% with her signature at M0, and it is at around 38% at M1. The main issue there is that the buff kind of sucks before M1. I'll go over that in detail a bit more later. Main thing about Rina, right, that I feel like is kind of overlooked, I guess, is that the main sort of value, at least in my opinion, when it comes to Rina, is the fact that she extends shock by 3 seconds. Now, this sounds useless on paper. Like, why would you want an anomaly longer? Like, what is the point? You can just refresh it anyway, especially with shock, which is just damage over time. But the special interaction that this 3-second extension has is actually that this applies to the disorder multiplier. If you were not aware, disorders do more damage based on how fast you trigger them compared to triggering the original anomaly. So if the anomaly has more time left by being extended by 3 seconds, disorder does more damage, and this 3 seconds increase is actually pretty substantial. Rina, specifically for Yanagi, is a side grade, I would say, to Astra. Sometimes slightly worse. It depends on the team, depends on the boss. But specifically when you're using her in a shock team, she is very valuable, and that is where she's meant to be used. She does also give 10% electric damage on shocked enemies, but this is kind of ass. The number is really low, and if you're playing a disorder team, this technically does nothing, but I'll get into that later. Now, just to quickly prove my point on how that disorder timer works, I'm gonna just show it in game, right? Oh yeah, RL Gasha, I mean, niche support should be really good. That's kind of the point. They have a niche and they're supposed to be good for it. Otherwise, why the hell would you pull a niche support when you can get a generalist? So they should just immediately shock and disorder. We got at 60k. If I reset the stage, it should be the exact same. Should be the exact same. Fuck off. There we go, 65-4. Now if I add Rina and don't do anything, I will not even apply her buff. She's just gonna be there. She's gonna exist in the party. 65k. It's like what, a little more than 10%? That's purely her giving shock extension. Now obviously it's gonna be way more noticeable than 5,000 damage if you're, you know, building higher damage on the fucking Yanagi. I have like no engine and shit is missing. The point is, merely by existing, Rina's shock extension does buff disorders that are based on shock, and that in itself is pretty good. And then on top of that, just having longer shock does help some rotations to work better. I think Rina's best synergy, or one of her best synergies, maybe not the best, is specifically in mono shock, which, you know, I play that a lot. Rina extending shock by 3 seconds in that team is actually really useful and makes her, like, that alone, it allows rotations to go slightly longer. It lets you run Thunder Metal on Grace more reliably, and those small little things add up to where, despite her buffing value being relatively low, she ends up beating out or being very similar to both M0 Yuzuha and M0 Astra in that team. Now that's cool and all. I've shown you what Rina is supposed to do. Her whole thing is being a shock unit. And she's pretty good as a shock unit. She's, again, side rate to Astra / Yuzuha. Yuzuha a bit more debatable. For units like Grace and Yanagi, and for Haramasa, that's pretty cool. That's pretty awesome. There's a lot of asterisks to that, though. I think one of the biggest issues when it comes to Rina, right? There's a lot. There's really quite a few. I think the first one I should cover is that Rina is a very baseline dependent character. When I say baseline, I am referring to a baseline level of investment that is required for Rina to actually be good or worth using. Rina's baseline is SIG and M1. You will need both for her to be, like, even a side grade to other units and shock teams, which is kind of unfortunate. Main reason being is that for Rina to be able to give her full pen buff, you just need Weeping Cradle. You can technically use something like, what's it called? You only need 1 copy, by the way, you don't need 5. 1 copy of Weeping Cradle will give the full buff, and you can technically use something like Fusion Compiler as well, but this has no support passive, so it sucks. So you need Weeping Cradle for Rina to give her full buff, because it scales of her own pen ratio. Without Weeping Cradle, you're not getting 70%, and thus you're not getting the full buff. On top of that, she needs her M1. Now, her M1 does 2 things, mainly. The first one is it extends her buff duration by 5 seconds. I will get into that in a bit. But the big one, the one that actually matters, is that for allies in close range, the buff value is increased from about 29% to about 38%, which is pretty significant. Giving 38% pen ratio is much more similar to Nicole giving 40 Death Shred, and 29% just isn't cutting it. So for Rina to really be competitive at all, she needs M1, she needs SIG, and that is a pretty big downside. I do think we are 2 years into the game now. I think expecting people to have M1 Rina isn't too outlandish, but, you know, you can't really guarantee this as far as I'm aware, like twice. So it is kind of a downside. I do think everyone and their mother should buy at least 1 Weeping Cradle from shop, but I mean, hey man, it's your currency, you can do whatever you want with it. Yeah, that's one big issue about Rina. She's very baseline heavy. She's so much worse without M1, without SIG. Like, the second best option is Kaboom, which is already way worse. And yeah, if you have like M0 Kaboom Rina, the character is pretty fucking bad. Like, pretty fucking shit. Now, the other main downside is that she's kind of weird. No one really knows how she works. Like, no one that doesn't actively use Rina really knows how she works exactly. Rina is a very weird support. She's very unique, I would say. I would say she's like a mixture of Lucy's Boars and Nicole. Rina isn't like most supports where it's like, oh, you know, you bring support in, you press EX or Ultimate, and then you have the buff for 5 years. Rina doesn't need EX to apply her buff. She applies her buff on literally every move, except one. Her hold basic attack is the only move that doesn't do this. Because, I don't know. Good idea, I guess. Good devs. Let them cook. Rina can apply her buff through literally any move that you use. The main ones that you're going to be using is Dash Attack, Special, and EX Special, and Chain Attack and Stun, or I guess Ultimate. But the main ones that you're going to be spamming is Special and Dash. Now, what is really weird is how the buff duration works. On every other character, pretty much, as far as I'm aware at least, the buff duration is stated in the kit. Nicole is 3.5 seconds after the last hit of whatever applies it. Lucy, I think, is 15 seconds stated somewhere. No, 10 seconds. Oh, 15 seconds, 15 seconds. Yeah, 10 or 15 seconds, and you can extend this. But the point is, the game tells you how long these abilities buff for. On pretty much all of them, as far as I'm aware. Yeah, there you go, 38 seconds. Rina does not tell you how long you get the buff for. Rina's buff duration cannot be written down with just one number, because it depends on every single different move. Every move gets a different number duration of her buff. Flo knows them, I know them. I know most of them, not all of them. I don't know how long fucking assist or basic 3 specifically does it. But every move applies the buff for a different amount of time. Her Chainer Ultimate applied for about 9 to 10 seconds. Her EX applies it for 8 to 9 seconds. Her Special is for about 6 to 7 seconds. Her Dash Attack is about 5 to 6 seconds. And all her basics are around 3 to 4 seconds. But like, the game doesn't tell you this. The game just tells you you have to buff while the dolls are on the field. And yes, that is not wrong. That is correct, actually. But it doesn't say how long they stay on field for. You just have to know this through testing. Now, obviously, all those numbers go up by 5.5 seconds if you have M1. Like Nicole, yeah, you want to play Rina very similarly to Nicole if you play her out of stun, where every time that you can, you want to quickly go in and swap Rina onto the field to do any attack, ideally special or dash, so that you can constantly apply her buff over and over again. It is a nice thing that she's not like resource gated at all. A character like Nicole has a resource to apply her debuff. She needs her bullets, which are pretty easy to come by, or her orbs. Lucy needs energy. Yuzua needs energy or ultimate. Like, Rina, as far as I'm aware, is the only support in the game that is not required, is not bound or restricted by a resource, which is good, but it does have a pretty big mechanics / gameplay requirement attached to it, where if the rotation in a team doesn't allow for quick swaps, Rina is kind of shit. Because her buffs only last for about 5 to 6 seconds on average at M0, even at M1, I guess it's a bit longer. The buff will just fall off if you're playing a very greedy rotation. Unless it's just, again, like Chain. Chain lasts a long time. Chain and ult lasts very long. But if you're using any other move, it's gonna run out. So there is like some caveats to it. Some teams are gonna have a better time using Rina than others. I think an example of a team that uses Rina the best or the easiest would be Miyabi Yanagi. If you've seen gameplay of that team at all. Miyabi Yanagi with Rina rotates very fucking fast, and you can apply Rina's buff so often that it's never really an issue as long as you don't get hit, which also isn't an issue because you're bleeding in iframes. Another team that does it pretty well would be Mono Shock with Haramasa. Haramasa and Grace cycle fairly often, so you can always refresh it. It does get a little bit more iffy if you have Haramasa M1, but with M0, you can do it very reliably. With Cecilia? Okay, Cecilia, right? Rina with Cecilia is technically good synergy because you can swap Rina in very often. The problem is, Cecilia runs 5 billion defense shred, and Rina buffs Pen, so it's kind of ass. But the synergy mechanically is technically there. I think in general, when people try to use Rina as a general support, which she already isn't, right? The only thing she does is give pen ratio, and she gives less pen ratio than Nicole gives defense. And then a lot of teams where you want to just play a carry, it can be really annoying to reapply her buff. So yeah, Rina will feel pretty bad depending on the team. And now the final thing that I think is the biggest flaw in terms of the character design is that Rina sucks at maintaining her Sig. For some reason. Now, Rina's Sig, Weeping Cradle, is in my opinion the best engine in the game. However, Rina kind of sucks at using it. This long fucking paragraph of text basically means when support attacks, you get buff. But buff will expire if you stop attacking, so don't do that. And this buff lasts for like 3 seconds before it falls off. From the last hit of damage, you have 3 seconds before it goes away. I think even the best Rina rotations are not swapping her in every 3 seconds. Like, you have a bit of time after the last hit, but like still. This is extremely tight, and because Rina doesn't have any true off-field attacks, at least pre-buff, she kind of sucks at maintaining this buff outside of stun. In stun, you can use her chain to help this a lot. It'll be active for most of it. But yeah, this is kind of a problem when you're playing Rina out of stun. And this is, I think, what they're going to be trying to fix with the buff, at least what we have right now. The way it looks at the moment is they're going to give Rina some off-field attacks. Not fully lean into it, which I think is good. But Rina getting some off-field, like, what's it called? Damage over time will significantly help maintaining the uptime on Weeping Cradle, which will, on its own, also buff her because it means she has this buff more often, as opposed to only sometimes. Now, the main thing to address, the elephant in the room, is why would you ever use Rina when Nicole exists? Holy build, what am I doing? Nicole and Rina are kind of similar in terms of how they buff, sort of. Ignoring the ether part of the kit, right? Because you can use Nicole anywhere. Nicole gives 40% defense shred, or defense shred, whatever the hell, same fucking word. Rina gives up to 38% pen ratio. If you're looking at purely that, Rina is basically the same as Nicole if Nicole was M5. The moment Nicole is M6, it's over. Because Nicole then gives crit rate. That's kind of what I want to get at. Rina will definitely underperform if you're looking to use her as a generalist support, because that isn't what she is. Rina's intended usage is in shock teams, and she is actually quite good in those teams. But as I mentioned before, those teams aren't very... Well, they're kind of far and few between. There's 3 units that really like Rina. Those 3 being Harumasa, Yanagi, and Grace. Maybe forgetting someone. In those teams, Rina is better than Nicole. Most of the time. But in other teams, if you're just there for pen support, she'll just be worse than Nicole, like every single time. Pretty much, unless it's like Lycon last slot and you want the additional ability for Lycon. But I think the main reason that people kind of look down on Rina is that Nicole exists. People will like not be like aware or too familiar with the fact that she's meant to be a shock support and see, well, okay, Rina's fucking useless. Why would I ever play Rina when Nicole exists? And I think that is kind of a fair argument when it comes to just general usage. What I'm hoping they do with arena buffs, and they're kind of doing it, is make Rina better in her niche. What she's doing right now is just giving 700 attack, 560 defense. Don't ask, I don't know. And again, she's getting the off-field attacks. That's gonna change most likely, but as it stands, Rina giving some attack just makes her a good all-arounder, like generalist support. She's basically better Lucy. It's a bit boring though. What I would like to see, honestly, is for Rina to just like lean more into the shock stuff. Like this 10% electric damage needs to be like 80%. Like this is so bad. I like the idea of new supports in games in general. I like to bring this up a lot with Genshin. Now Genshin's a different game, but it is the same dev team. Oh, it's not dev team, sorry. This is the same IP, my bad. No, not IP. Fucking owner. Oyoverse, you get what I mean. I'm using the wrong words. Genshin has characters like mainly, the main examples are Chevreuse and Escoffier. Those 2 characters are niche units, niche supports that buff very specifically Freeze and Overload, which is like an archetype of unit, an archetype of team. It's like a reaction. And in those teams, they're really fucking good. And they're kind of dog shit outside of it, and I think that's good design. I think making units that are very restricted to a specific archetype, but making them really good in that archetype is great. Lighter kind of is that, except that he's worse than generalists, because they make generalists way too good. So that's kind of a problem that is not really Rina's fault, like at all. That's just Zenless design philosophy for some fucking reason. But yeah, right now it looks like they're gonna make her more generalist, which like fine, whatever. But I would like to see Rina to become more, just better in her niche. Like bump this electric damage up to 80%. Because another issue, funny enough, if you're playing Rina with Yanagi, but then like a second anomaly, right? If you're perfectly cycling like elemental auras, right? If you're going from, let's say, burning to shock over and over again, think of it like this. You start on a shock aura, right? You didn't get 10% damage because when you were making the shock, there was no shock. If that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, I'm not going to explain it. It's going to take way too long. So you have shock now. You use Bernice, for example, to switch from shock to burn. Okay, now you have a burn aura, and you want to bring it back to shock. With Yanagi, you know, makes sense, disorder. Problem. When you're bringing in Yanagi to shock the burned enemy, they aren't shocked. You're not even getting 10% damage bonus. Like, not only is it only 10%, it's not even active in disorder teams. It's not. It's sometimes active. Like, this is the worst part of her kit by far. Like, I would love to see them really like delve into making Rina a very good unit for shock. She's already solid, and she will just be better by giving attack, like that's fine. But I would like them to be a little bit more specific in what they're doing here. Like, this is very good with Harumasa and Grace in mono shock teams. Not just that team specifically, but like Rina, Grace, and like a random third unit. It's just good, or it's fine. It's solid. And yeah, with Harumasa, she's gonna be really good with the buff looking as it does right now. But I would like them to be explore this like niche setup a little bit more. Anyway, that's all I really have to say. I kind of just wanted to yap out Rina, what she is, how she works, what her purpose is, what her flaws are, which are pretty important. And yeah, what we can hopefully expect from buffs. Again, right now it's just minor stat buffs, which are good. They are good buffs, but I would like to see something a little bit more creative from them. Anyway, that's it. You should subscribe or something so I can get to 10 billion. But you know, I'm gonna call out this man. There's this random guy. Actually, no, maybe I shouldn't do that. But there's someone out there with 10,000 subscribers, and I'm at 9,000. And I respectfully think I'm a cooler person. I'm funnier than them, so I should get more. There you go. That's your reason to subscribe. Bye. All right, video mode done.